Hello everybody. We'll be playing Fields of Mistria soon. I just got it working. Worst thing happened. My whole computer decided to crash everything right before the stream, so it took a bit longer to set up, but it's here, and we'll be able to continue. Which is good. I like continuing. I want to continue my cute little farm. Let's see where I left off. Because I don't remember exactly what I was doing last time. So I need to look a bit and see where we are. Oh, my controller unplugged. Okay. Let's see what quests we're doing. I need to try to get the sod and the peat. Okay. What day are we at? Saturday 6th. Let's check the mail first. Oh yeah, we got the stone rank. That means we'll be able to do the mine soon. Oh, I can't wait to go hit some rocks. I yearn for the mines. Okay, please accept this token of thanks. Ooh, copper ingot. Thank you. Weather crystal ball. Oh, yep, there is the thing. Reopening the mines. I need your help with something important. Please meet myself and curator Errol at the museum west of town to discuss the reopening of the mines. Heck yeah. And greet the Saturday market vendors. Okay. So we got new quests to do after we water our plants. There we go. Let's hit some rocks. How much? I should clear my inventory first. Tomorrow will be a thunderstorm. Oh good, I don't have to water tomorrow. Okay, let's empty what I don't need. Keep that. Actually, keep the stone. I'll keep that on hand too. Go talk about the mines. And then we'll go talk to the people at the Saturday market. A little wacky, but we'll have to live with it. That's what I get for having a potato as a computer. Ooh, fish. I don't have the fishing rod yet. I gotta save up for it. I could technically go buy it now. And I can make more money back easily. Are you at the museum? Yeah. Blaze, thank you for joining us. I hope you haven't roped Blaze into your scheme, Zayland. Ooh, I do love a good scheme. Then you'll love this. I believe the time has come to discuss reopening the mines. Yeah, let's go hit some rocks. Zayland, with all due respect, I believe we should be focusing on the museum. We don't have the workforce to reopen the mines in a commercial capacity, whereas the museum is drawing interest from as far as the capital already. I believe it is the surest way to raise Mistria's renown, which should be our top priority. We are in agreement that the museum should be our focus, Errol. However, with the arrival of Blaze, I believe we now have the perfect person to begin exploring the mines. Shipments of ore would be available to the town, and there are surely some incredible artifacts just waiting to be discovered in the depths. The more dangerous the adventure, the better. That's the spirit. While I appreciate the enthusiasm, I simply can't approve of a reopening at this time. Structural damage or seam slippage, the elevator has stopped working. And I've been hearing strange sounds from below. Oh, that is a strange sound. Surely you're not keeping the mines shut over some eerie noises, Errol. He is. He absolutely is. I would be happy to reconvene on the matter when Mistria's town rank has reached at least Stone Star rank, if that could satisfy you two. I can see there's no budging you, Errol. Well, at least we have a goal in sight. How can I help? Turning in items for museum sets, completing requests, and shipping items are all ways that you can help to raise Mistria's renown. Let's get to it. The mines will be reopened in no time. Oh yeah. I'm glad to see you so enthused, Zayland. Okay. Would that add anything to my quests? No. Someday we will go to the mines. Okay, then I'll focus on the fishing. I'll have to go down to the beach and get a fishing rod. Okay. Oh, I went the wrong way. Honestly, I would get lost anywhere. I could not find myself out of a paper bag. There's this mall I used to go to all the time. I would still get lost in it after years of going to it. I'm never gonna always know my way. But, like, at least I could find my way to the beach with a map. Okay. Let's go and buy a fishing rod. And then that'll be all of my monies. Okay. Anything else here? Oh, you could buy fish too. And fish recipes, that's so neat. Seaweed. I already got a fishing rod. Okay. Let's do some fishing. Oh yeah, I gotta reorder it. Okay, let's see if I can find a fish. Come on. Get on my reel. Let's do this. Yes. Got him. Oh, I got a swordfish. Okay. Let's see if I can get you. Oh, what's that? Oh, I got a jellyfish. I love jellyfish. They're so pretty. They have such a good aesthetic. Come on, give me the fish. A sardine? I think there's more areas to explore over here. Oh hey, is that an island? So it is. Oh, I got the shards for that one quest. That's good. Back to fishing. Is there any fish I can reach over here? No. Oh wait, there's some fish over here. There we go. Oh, what's that? That's new. Oh my god, it's a shrimp. You're telling me a shrimp fried this rice? Okay, let's go to the dive spot. Ooh, a pearl clam. Can I go under it? No. Okay, let's get back over here, even though swimming is very slow. There we go. Oh, what is that little guy? Oh, a water bug. I love him. He's so cute. Let's get an item. Got a Pete. Anything to give to the museum? The water bug. The shrimp. And I gotta give the shards to Errol, I think. Wasn't there a quest for that? No. Oh, okay, no quest for that. I thought there was. Oh wait, that was the old quest, okay. Go put some stuff back. And then once we put all our stuff away, I can come back out to do more fishing. Oh, okay. Extra clay. And there we go, we're directly on my farm now. The fish should help us gain back our money. $13. No point selling those. What about these? No point. Yeah, let's go back to the chest. Reorganize this a little bit. Shrimp. And the water bug. Need to go to the museum. Oh wait, I gotta meet the Saturday market people. Can't forget about the Saturday market people. After I catch a fish. Come on. Doing the big boy. One more. Okay, actually one more now. See what I got. Oh, new fishing level. Cool. And a salmon. Is that donatable? No, so I'll just sell it. Okay, now the Saturday market. But before that, actually, while I'm walking this way. Oh, just asking for wood and stone. Yep, that's Reese. Okay. And let's get my stuff. Get the monies. Unlock the cosmetic. And I've raised my stamina. Okay, now I can meet all the people at the Saturday market. Start with you. Hello there. Welcome to Darcy's Cafe. Yes, I'm Darcy. If you're ever in the mood for a nice cup of coffee or a sweet treat, be sure to stop by. Everything is made fresh. Hello. If you're looking for a new hairstyle, you're talking to the right person. My name's Vera. I'm a traveling hairstylist. I've been all over Eldaria. I'd be happy to teach you any hairstyle I know. Just pick what you want and put down your coins. Okay, I've met them. Here's Nora. Please don't go far. I'm almost done with this. Greetings and salutations. My name is Lewis. If you were looking for an article of clothing, you may rest assured that I personally cut and sew every garment you'll find at my booth. My stock changes with the week, so if you have something you simply have to see yourself in, don't wait. Okay. And you. Hi, welcome to Mary's Antiques. I'm Mary. I sell all sorts of unique furniture here that I source and restore myself. The selection is always changing. If you see something you like, snag it before it disappears here. Okay, where did Nora go? Ah. There she is. Turn in. Thanks, Blaze. Isn't the market great? Here's your reward. You can buy something from your favorite stall. 200. You know, I might just look at the outfit stall. I love Friday nights at the inn. It was so nice to see everyone relaxing. Thank you, but I wanted the store. Okay, bandana, sprout hat, cap, hoop earrings, striped long sleeve, striped bow, bucket hat, short pleated skirt, tangerine hat, an oversized tea outfit. Honestly, nothing I'm really into. That's okay, though. Let me look at the hairs, too. Let's see. They're all cute, but I don't know. Oh, there's little hair clips, too. It's so cute. Getting stuck in the crowd. Let's see what you got. Food, drink. Oh, and you got recipes. Let's see. Mocha, iced coffee, green tea, latte, hot chocolate, iced tea cheddar biscuit, pumpkin pie, pomegranate juice, tea with lemon, jasmine tea, chocolate cake, ice cream sundae, and grape juice. I mean, if I get a lemon tree, I don't know if it has enough time to grow, though. Or maybe later. Now let's see the furniture. Okay. Paper stack. I'd rather save it for any tools I still need to get. What do we have so far? We still need to make or get a shovel. How much is a shovel? We sell them here, right? Oh, but it's all copper tools. So it's a lot more expensive. I can get more seeds. How much room do I have on my farm? Quite a bit, actually. Oh, hi, Josephine. I was walking by the old mine and heard some odd noises. You and me both. You and me both. So let's go look at the farm and see what we can grow. Okay. There's at least 3 spaces, and I can make more. Let's buy a bunch of crops. I just need to make it before the day ends. Okay. General store. Now give me some seeds. I'll grow some plants. I think I have a strawberry that I'm growing. No, I don't. 1 strawberry. 2 cabbage. Okay. There we go, some seeds. I'm pretty sure the strawberry regrows, so we'll have a few harvests from that. Which is very good because I'd like to be able to sell the strawberries. Right, let's get planting. Do I have hoe? I do not. Let's get the hoe. And tile out 3 more spots. Maybe I can get 2 more seeds. Okay, water them. There we go. I guess I can clean up the farm a little bit more too now. So I can use up some of this stamina. Alright, I do need to get that stone stuff for that quest. I think I needed like 10. So let's do that. Get stone until I got enough for that. Five. Seven. 8. 9. And 10. Oh, and there's a fish up there. And got him. Another salmon. Okay, back to hitting trees. I'll turn in the quest tomorrow. Okay. Got lots of stuff to— oh, don't want to lose that. Let's see if I can get any more skills now. You have helped to repair the bridge into town. Well done, Blaze. I am sure the other villagers appreciate your efforts. Let's see what I got. Okay, occasionally get a seed origin. Let's do that. How much we have left? 18. And, yep, put some focus into farming. Get some more wood. I kind of want to clear this area up a little bit. And eventually when I get the shovel, I'll probably expand the farming area this way a little bit. Oh wait, I could probably get that at the general store. I forgot about that. Well, not now. I don't have the money anymore, but maybe in the next day. Oh, we're out of stamina. Okay, all the plants are watered. Everything I want to sell in here. Yeah, everything I want to sell is in there. I guess my cat isn't back yet. Oh wait, I don't have a cat yet. I keep forgetting that I've played this before and I had a cat. That's about as far as I got, and I was like, where's the cat? No, there's no cat. Well, I guess I'm the cat since I have cat ears. That's another successful day. And we got a bunch of coins too from all the fish. And the quests, I guess. Ooh, more monies. I'll be going to get that, and hopefully the mines are open. Because I'm at stone rank. Okay, I'm gonna turn the rain down a little bit. There we go, that's a little better. Discuss Mistria's emergency supply reserves. Let's go. And you're all watered. Oh wait, did I miss something? Okay, in regards to the mines, Aeland has informed me that Mistria's rank has been raised to Stone Star, and I have agreed to meet with him to further discuss the mines. Please meet us at the mines entrance west of town. Got it. This is still a bit too loud for me. There we go. That rain was too loud for me to hear anything else. Okay, let's go up, get our rewards, and pick up quests if there's any. And then we'll go left and start the mines. Actually, maybe I should empty my inventory first. Because I've got a lot of stuff in it. Okay, since we're going to the mines, we won't need these. That. Okay. There we go. We're organized. Gotta love the organization. Okay, now let's get our rewards and then head over. Right over here. Oh, I can easily do that. Today's for mining, but still. And extra monies. Now we just gotta head for the mines. I'm so ready to break a ton of rocks. Let me donate the stuff first. Okay, got that done. Now, let's go to the mines. Where we'll go and hit a bunch of rocks. Heck yeah. Please, what a joyous day. Mistria's town rank improvement shows that we're on the right track. Why, just think, if we leave the mines closed up, we can continue to focus our efforts on other initiatives. Errol, we both know the town's growth will not continue without a reliable source of stone and ore. New artifacts for the museum would be a boon too. Yeah, let me in the mines. I can see there's no dissuading you two. Alright. We shall proceed with the reopening. Be careful, Blaze. The earthquakes have revealed cave passages beneath the mines that are yet unexplored. I trust you're ready to handle whatever lies below. Keep your wits about you now. For Mistria! Yeah! Let me in! Good luck! I will do what I can to assist the both of you with your finds at the museum. I'm gonna collect so much stuff for the museum. With the main shaft collapsed, you'll need to take the ladder down to start your descent. The elevator isn't working, but Errol believes that if you can rediscover the elevator platforms further down, that it can be restarted. I can do that. Incredible, another dragon statue? This wasn't here before the earthquake. It looks like the statue on my farm. Haha, it seems the archaeologist bug has bit you too. I need to confer with Errol and begin a thorough search of the mine's history. It's hard to believe that there's no record of this. It's hard to believe that there's a Oh my god, I can't talk for now. Oh my goodness. It's hard to believe that there's no record of the statue. I hate to cut and run so soon, but this is of immense archaeological importance. Will you be alright in your own place? Yeah! We could do this. Let's go hit some rocks. Best of luck, we're all looking forward to your findings. Am I free? Can I go now? Let me in. Be back in the mines. Okay, here we go. Exploring the mines is a great way to find new materials, forage, fish, blah blah blah. Got it. Floor 1. My favorite thing, hitting rocks. And with copper ore, we're going to be able to make a lot more tools now, too. And sea march more, of course. Let's see. Gotta try to get down to the lower level. If we could get down to at least floor 5, that would be good. Because then we can get the first elevator. There we go. I know I'll be processing this ore too. When I'm done, I'll check and see if we can get any perks as well, because I could use those. Particularly the one that makes it so you can use less ore to make ingots. That would be very helpful. Go across here. Oh, there's a little mushroom guy. I love him. Oh, and there's a lightning guy too. Okay. Oh, I got zapped. Got him. Oh, and I got some glass. Neat. Okay, try to get through over here. And let's get this. Next floor. There we go. Ooh, a monster fang. Let's see what kind of fish I get down here too. Fish, fishy, 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 fish. Yeah, what kind of fish we got? A rock guppy. Oh, it's a baby. It's a little baby fish. I love that. Okay. Let's catch this guy. And turn him off. Okay, let's eat a item because that's getting a little close. Okay, that should do for now. Oh! And an iron spot. There we go. Okay, it's only 12:30 p.m. in the game. Oh, there we go. Getting good at fighting these mushroom guys. Let's see what I got. Shortcut scroll. And miner's pickaxe, okay. Get those. Get these. I'm gonna focus on making tools before armor. Because I think I can manage with the amount of health I have. For the most part. Ooh, a chest. Oh. That was a mimic. That was my bad. It's a fish. I think that's another of the same fish. Yep, that's a rock guppy. Oh, I'm out of stamina. Let me... Because I just need to get down to one more floor. You... Oh, you can't eat it. Oh wait, that's a mushroom. Do I eat the mushroom, or do I give up and leave? You know what, there's more of these down here. Yeah, no, okay. At least we got a lot of iron. Okay. Reclaimer. Treasure hunter. Or original. Okay. Earthbreaker. We got a bunch of mining done today, at least. So that's always good. I can't catch anything. Everything's watered. Oh yeah, we got those new shoes. Oh, I should go to the quest with Adeline. There you go. Not that far up. But actually, let's see how many I can make. Yeah, let's make some of those. Get my level up a little bit. Okay. Now that I've made some ores. Not ores, ingots. We can go see Adeline. Adeline? Line? And we can start this quest now. Your request is reasonable, but could I suggest we add a sleep aid to the list of medicines? It keeps well. We ran short in the days after the earthquake. It'd be a weight off my mind to know we have extra stock. That's a great idea. Our first aid supply should cover all the bases. Excellent, I'll get to work. Yes, I'm here. Here to pitch in as well, Blaze. Yeah, I am. Many hands make light work. I'll leave you two to it. Thanks for answering my letter. I've sent out personal requests to anyone who might be able to help us rebuild our emergency stockpile. I don't like to think about what might have happened without it in the aftermath of the earthquake. Unfortunately, it's pretty much used up. You can count on me. If only we could stockpile your enthusiasm too. Could you keep... Oh wait. Could you ship 10 crops to help our food rations? I'll give you these seeds to get you started. Locally grown crops keep well, and they're filling and nutritious too. I think we'll all sleep easier with the emergency stockpile refilled, don't you? Okay. So we got that quest started, so whenever we finish growing stuff, we could just ship it. Oh yeah, we got 10 potato seeds, so... that means we'll have to hoe a little bit. And we won't even have to water it. At least, not for this day. How many potatoes can I grow? Who knows? I've learned that in farming games, the potato is just the ideal vegetable to grow. Oh heck, I forgot we're low on stamina. Do I have any food in my chest? Time to berry max this. Okay, there we go. Now we can do this. Okay, now we can get the hoe out and get 4 more spots. There we go. We have an extra spot. That's fine. Maybe I can get another strawberry. Or a cabbage. Yeah, let's get a cabbage. There we go. 1 more seed to fill it. Oh, There. Got blocked in. Let me out. And I'll probably do a bunch of fishing tomorrow. Because honestly, that's gonna probably make the most money aside from the crops. There we go. Let's sell the flowers. Not both of them. There. Yeah, I'm not gonna use that anytime soon. Let's sell the ruby. Okay, that's good enough for now. I'll get more seeds later. Just to make sure I get a save in and time for the next day. Gotta hydrate. Oh my gosh. Cat time? We get a cat now? You dream of a familiar presence. You concentrate, and an image begins to form. Oh yeah, here we go, cat time! I got the mod for cat colors too, so I'm really excited. I might get an orange cat, honestly. But there's so many neat colors. And different eye colors too. There's also this white one. You're cute too. Let's go with this one. Yeah, you can be... Yeah, you can be Sammy. Actually, no, I'll put my own in. I'm gonna call you Lilac. There we go, now we got a cat. What a nice dream. Okay, we made 400 monies and 34 renown. That's pretty good. Let's see how many levels we went up. Up to 12, okay. That's pretty dang good still. I mean, we're only 8 days in, that's quite a bit of progress. Let's save. Let's reorganize my inventory as well. Okay, there, so I can fit the watering can. Kitty cat, hello little friend. I'm glad to see you here. Oh, what a baby, I want to pet you. Yes, you can come right into my house uninvited. You could never do anything wrong. How strange, it seems this cat has decided to live with you. Somehow you already know their name is Lilac. Okay, change. It's raise heart level. And they don't go out when it rains. That's okay. They are doing very good. Go see the cat. I want to pet it. Hi, Lilac. Let me just pick you up and put you down for fun. Okay, now let's... Ooh, I got a recipe for baked potato. Heck yeah. I sold all the potatoes except one, but that's pretty neat. Oh, there it is. Now, get my tool back. Watering can. And let's water everything. There we go, that's all the plants. Goes away and grab you. And grab the wooden stone. And let's start by going to the museum first. Going past the farm to get there. Now let's see. We've got all the stuff for the museum, and then I'll do some fishing over by the beach. I don't need to do anything more with my crops today. I just really wanted to shake that tree. Wait, can I collect these? I can. So I can make more of the trail mix soon. That's good because I'll need it. It was really helpful in the mines, but now I am out of the food. Get all these, and maybe I'll get a few fishies on the way. And let's get you. Oh darn it, it was only fiber. Come on, get a little closer. Head this way. Yeah. Ooh, a trout. Nice. You can donate that as well. Get some berries. I love collecting the little berries. Now let's donate some stuff. Rock goby. Miner's pickaxe. Potato. Lantern moth. Shortcut scroll. Trout. Okay. Prop set, upper mines insect, buried artifact set. These fish, okay. Good. Now that I've done that, see how much. Okay, let me do that quest. Berries. I gotta bring that to Reese, so I gotta go to... Oh wait, he's right in there. Duh. He was right over there and I missed him. I'm sorry, my sweet summer child. I will never forget you again. Oh, the wild berries I asked for, thank you. Here's my recipe for berries and cream. I hope you like it as much as I do. Yeah, recipe. Okay, so that's one quest out of the way. So next, we gotta find Reese. Looks like he's in town, I think. Yeah. Just go to the middle and keep going up until I see him. Huh, thanks, Blaze. I could turn this into something pretty nice. Yep. I'm wasting my copper ore on you. Okay. Hi, Balin. You're new in town. I'd like to give you your first checkup. Don't worry, it's free. We're not unreasonable here. Oh, that was some shade. I love it. Okay, I haven't seen him yet. Is he still... I went too high up. Oh, you're over there, you're crafting. Let's turn it in. Oh, thanks, Blaze, you're a lifesaver. I'll be able to finish my project with these materials. Here's your reward. I get monies and renown. Yay. Speaking of, I don't think I checked the board yet. Or if I did, I forgot. Either way, we're going there. Eventually. I'm too high up. This is what I mean when I say I can't find myself out of a paper bag. Okay, take these. Yeah, bring him some more. Get him a caterpillar at some point. I can make stone benches now. I guess I'm going all the way back up to March to give him some more copper ore. Okay, here we go. Go up a little more. And here we are. Turn in. But you completed my request? Fine, let's go get your reward. So ready. There, now scram, I've got work to do. Woo, we got a reward! It's good to hear you're back at work, March. I guess that means someone completed your request? Lady Adeline, yeah, yes it does. Happy to help out. Oh, how wonderful. Thank you, Blaze. Thanks, Blaze. You're so unenthused. I have an idea. As an extra reward, why don't you give Blaze a quick lesson in blacksmithing? Doesn't that sound like fun? Sure. Hell yeah, I'm gonna learn the thing. Blacksmithing is a craft that takes time, skill, and good materials. With enough practice, anyone can be a passable blacksmith. But a true artisan like myself can take it a step further and infuse the metal with a new power. You're not ready for that. Would you like to view? No, I think I'm good. Go on, pick it up. You're giving it to Blaze? How generous, March. Yeah, sure. Why not? Woo, copper ingot! What did I tell you, Blaze? He's a big softy, really. I'm sure he'll be happy to let you use this forge whenever you want to work on your blacksmith thing. Fine. I have other work to take care of. And there he goes. I'll see you again. I love that boy. Let's see, I'm not high enough level yet. but I have just enough to make one copper tool at least. Yeah. Next up, beach fishing. And getting more of the... Oh wait, did I do all the quests? Okay, I did all those ones. Now I've got that one still, but also the new one for a caterpillar. So I'll have to keep an eye out for one of those. Let's do some fishing. Yeah. Let's get these ones over here too. Okay, one of you. Ooh, a rock bass. Ooh, level... Oh wait, is that level 5 or 6? I think that's up to level 6 now. Okay, I think that's enough fish over there. And let's... My cat! Hello, baby! Oh, you're so cute and lovable. Oh wait, I can give you a job. I forgot I could do that. Cosmetic. Type. Job. How about for now, collect stone? You're a working cat now. Oh, where did you go? Okay, let's get the 3 more crops, actually. I was gonna do more fishing, but I need more seeds. Maybe I'll grab some turnips. Wait, was that a caterpillar? Or a grasshopper? It's gone, is what it is. Never mind. Heck. I'm gonna have to go plant the seeds and come back for the shovel. I made mistakes. My shovel is waiting for me. I must plant these seeds. Okay, where's the seed? Okay, now I can get the shovel. There we go, now I got the shovel. Maybe I can make a path. I want to make a whole path to different areas. You know, kind of like there are these paths here. It'll probably take a lot of stamina, but you know what? Oh wait, I gotta water those too. Oh yeah, I gotta cook those as well. I did not grab the watering can. Okay, here we go. Gotta water those too. Now we're going back to the shovel. Oh, you're new. It's a good start on that. Okay. Haven't sold anything. Fine. I can go a day without selling stuff. And let's go through to my incomplete road. And all the way up to the museum again. So then we can turn in all our new fish and our little buggy friend. I would so catch more fish if I had stamina left. But we gotta take our time with things. Little by little, things will get done. Oh, okay, that's a... You click on things you can't donate. Okay, we've donated, now I can sell the rest. And then I'll do some cooking. Well, that's a big boy. I would have tried to get the big boy, but no more stamina. Okay, here we go. Let's go this. We can do cooking on the way back. Oh wait, I can get the free soup and go back to the fish if it's still there. I keep forgetting about the soup. Okay, let's make them. Cool. We're up to level 7! I love that! Oh wait, no, level 8 I mean. Heck yeah! And I got a berry back. Okay. Since I got a little stamina, let's see if the fish is, still there. If not, I'll just catch whatever fish are there. Come on, fishy, fish, fish, fish. Yeah, that's fair. Okay, that's one fish. And hopefully 2 fish. Yeah. And there's one more fish in there. Let's see if I can get it. Oh, no more stamina. Okay. Let's go back to my house then. Okay, bring my character to bed. And of course, pet my cat before bed. My kitty cat back yet? Yeah. And you brought me stone, what a good girl. There we go, you can sleep by the bed. Oh wait, before I send my character off to let's put some of the fish in. Yeah. Okay. Save progress. And sleep. Time for sleepy sleep time. Oh, and we made almost 200 tesserae and of like 120 renown. That is really good. Means we level up and get more money. Yay! Oh wow, we're doing a lot of leveling up. Up to level 14 already. There we go, day start. Pet my kitty cat. Oh, thanks for the raid, Light Fairy. Yeah, we're playing Fields of Mistria. We just, got done with a night of fishing. Thank you. I've been playing for a while now, but we're moving up in the— oh wait, we don't have to, fight or anything because it's raining. That's good. So let's see what quests we gotta do. Okay. I've shipped 3 the potatoes I shipped. I need to try to get those and a caterpillar. Okay. This is a little bit of bad timing, but I was about to go on break to get some water, but I will be back very soon. Alright, I'm back with some water. Always good to hydrate, gamers. Now, as for what we're doing today, we already did fishing, so I was thinking maybe go back to the mines today, actually. So let's empty my inventory for that. Because I really want to get down to floor 5 since we just got the mines recently. So let's put all these away. Except for that. I think I did, just in case, bring the berries too. Okay. So yeah, we're going for a mining day now. Well, let's get a few berries first. It's always nice to have them. Oh hey, there's a fish over there. I get very distracted easily, but we are gonna do the mines. Okay. More berries. Gotta head towards the mines. Oh. Could be a relic. No, it's just another peat. Okay, I'm pretty sure it's used for crafting stuff. Grab these berries. And head up to the mines. Now let's try and get down further. Oh, I'm so glad I got that perk. That's gonna be very useful. Yep, let's get the copper and go down. Okay. You just gotta get far enough that I can get an elevator. Get these. There we go, got those guys. You. Oh, there's... Let me just get these few things. And get him. Now let's go down to the 3rd floor. Got the mushrooms again. This little perk, we should be able to get down to the 5th floor. Oh, you're a rock enemy. There we go, got the guy. Ooh, monster shell. That's new. We hadn't gotten that before. Get some more copper. I can make more ingots, which means I'll be able to up my blacksmithing level. Which means I'll be able to make better Ooh, a perfect copper ore. That's really neat. And a mushroom. Stuff I can donate to the museum. Heck yeah. Okay, those. Oh, that one was made of copper ore. Anyone else gonna attack? Yep, you. There we go. Beetroot, that's new. Another one of the... Got him. And a red toadstool. I'm getting so much I can donate to the museum. Give me a ladder. Please just give me a ladder. Just one ladder would be very, very nice. No? Oh, there's the ladder. Okay. Any more ore hiding? There's wood. Let me see if I missed anything up there. Yeah, I missed a few up there. Copper ore. Now let's go down. Oh, I missed some copper, but that's okay. We made it to floor 5. And you know what? That was my goal. I don't need anything more. That's it. We got to floor 5. And now let's see what else we'll do in the day. Oh, the inventory is very full. Let's head back. Donate stuff and then head back. See, we got perfect copper, we got a mushroom, and we got another mushroom, and a sweet root. That's a pretty good haul right there of stuff to donate. Oh, they're all in the forge set. I just gotta get 2 more things in that set and it'll be done. That is so neat. Okay. Now we gotta keep going. Let's see. Right, let's forge some more ingots. I can do 3 with what I got. Okay, we got to 5, so hopefully that's enough to get tools. Yeah, it is. Okay, cool. Okay, what should be the first copper tool? Either the watering can or the pickaxe. You know what? Let's upgrade the pickaxe first. Heck yeah. Now we got a copper pickaxe rather than the worn out one. And we got another peak. I didn't even know you could get a dig spot over there. Okay, what shall I do next? I don't have much stamina, but I could probably do a little bit of fishing. Actually, what do you have for sale? You know what? Yeah, let's get that. And that. So I could donate it. Since I haven't seen it around at all yet. And maybe I'll see if any fish are biting. And I think that'll be a complete collection. Okay. Donate them. Oh, you can't donate that. Well, I guess I've got one anyways now. Didn't I get the moral mushroom, actually? I think that's in my chest. Okay, now let's break this big rock. And get a sapphire that I can sell. I can take down the big rocks now. Oh, that's why there wasn't more to donate. I forgot about you. The store horse. You're a cosmetic. And now I can take this lilac too. I will give you the horse. Take my horse. Here you go. And donate. There we go. Let's keep going. Oh, a dive spot! What are we gonna get? What are we gonna get? Crayfish! I love crustaceans. I have a pokey little guy. He likes to poke, he likes to claw. He goes click clack. Let's go this way. Inventory is full. Let's sell my little crustacean friend. You. I'll sell you. Do I need you? I'll sell one of you. You know what, I'm just gonna sell the key. And this. Save the mushroom. And save the sat. Then the clay. Okay, where is my cat inside yet? Yes. Let me pet you. I love that I could just carry you around the room like this. Can I get you on the table? No. You get stuck if I leave you there? Well, I guess you'll go to sleep right there. That's it for the day. Okay, we made 170 coins and 32 renown. Go to the next day. Okay. Save. I think this is about it for me today. So let me close the game. Okay. I set the music there for a minute. But thank you everyone who watched for coming. And I don't know if we're gonna be playing Mistria next time, but we'll definitely continue it again another day. And I think we made a lot of great progress. We got the mines open, we got down to the 5th floor, we did a bunch of fishing and saved up a lot of monies, and we've got all of the tools now, and we even upgraded one of them to copper. So I think we did really good today. And with that, I think I'm gonna end it here. I hope you guys had a very good time watching.